background that made you so successful? What are the keys to your success, you think?
Well, I think all of one's life experience goes into who one is at any given moment throughout your life. I think that's true. So, I grew up in a small town in Canada. Rural values, I would say blue collar values, a work ethic. My parents worked hard. I sort of grew up with a work ethic. I think, maybe one is born with a storytelling gene, the ability to communicate ideas and images and so on. I think I'm blessed to have a very vivid imagination. I do a lot of my work in dreams, in remembering dreams and getting ideas from dreams, visuals and so on. Putting together the storytelling with the business, I was never predisposed to business. I had to learn that as I went along. And I think it's important, in my life it's been important to identify my weaknesses and work on those weaknesses. Business was a weakness. Management of the team was a weakness for me. I think there's a leadership gene that just naturally is the loud voice that gets people to do things. You just sort of, when you're a kid, you can get kids to follow you and go make something. Maybe it's a go-kart or something. And then that sort of causes you to be a natural leader. But there's a difference between a natural leader and a good leader. A good leader is someone who listens to the group, builds good morale, gets people to do their best work. I wasn't doing that because most of my projects were short. Movies tended to be short. My first film was 42 days of shooting. It's almost like it's a startup company, and then you're winding it down after 42 days.
It's like a one-day show.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, it's like a big production, and then everybody disperses. So I didn't need those skills. As my projects got longer and more complex, I needed to build that skill. And for me personally, the way I found it was not by doing movies. It was by doing the deep ocean exploration, the expedition projects. So I was working.
What did you learn from those?
Well, I learned that when I personally handpicked my team, which I had to do, because sometimes on some of these research ships, even though they were quite large, my team could only consist of 15, 16 people because of the number of bunks available on the ship. So I had to handpick people who were very good. And you'd get to sea, and you'd have storms and hurricanes and all kinds of setbacks and adversity. And you saw people performing under incredible stress and performing very well. And you realized how much of respect that you have for them. And so it caused me to treat everybody on my team respectfully and earn the leadership. Not just assume it. It wasn't a top-down system. I would get in and I would help them. I'd roll up my sleeves and I'd be in there solving the problem with them or doing the physical work, sometimes covered with grease. And I think it's an issue of learning respect for your team members. And still, no matter how good they are, there's still going to be times when they make a mistake or they have an oversight and so on. And I just found that it's so important to just be internally cognizant of what steps led to that mistake, whether it was on their part or my part for not communicating, but not berate them or belittle them about what led to the mistake. But just maybe uncoupled from it at a later time say, and this was a place where something went wrong, and let's not do that again, you know what I mean? But no finger pointing, no blaming. And I, because previously I had thought, well, the best way to get people not to make the mistake again is to rub their nose in it, like you know what I mean? To make it a miserable moment for them, and then they'll never do that again. And it just doesn't work. And the psychology of getting the best out of people, it just doesn't work. But it's a discipline. You have to discipline yourself.
So it seems as though you did have your leadership gene somewhere, that you have developed it. Let's go to the teams. You mentioned.
Well, what's genetic and what is learned and what is acquired? I think some people.
Do you have the answers to that?
I think it varies from person to person. In my case, I don't think I came by it quickly or organically. I had to train myself to do it, which basically means anybody can do it.
That's the good news.
Yeah.
You worked, I believe, as a truck driver.
Mm-hmm. Truck driver, precision tool and die machinist, bus mechanic.
What were your dreams at that point? What would you want to become?
Well, I was dreaming about these amazing worlds. So I'd leave that job and I'd go home and I'd paint or I'd write. I was always assuming that there was something over the horizon where I'd get to work, maybe if not in movies, maybe I'd be a writer, maybe I'd be an artist. I hadn't really figured out what it was yet. And then I saw this little movie called Star Wars, and I saw the type of imagery up on the screen that I had been imagining. And I thought, there's a market for what I see in my head. And I quit my job, my truck driving job, and I started to make a little science fiction film, just because I thought, do it. You know, don't question it. Do it now. Do it before you have kids, because then you're never going to do it.